in this meeting. To ensure sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute except when speaking or voting. This meeting is open to the public, but it is not a public hearing. Therefore, no members of the public may speak unless specifically invited to do so. If a member of the public creates an audio or video disruption, they may be manually ejected from the meeting upon recommendation of staff or the chair. We appreciate your attendance at this meeting. Should you have any questions about this process, you may call our staff at 860-444-5813 after the meeting has concluded. Maureen, is Geneva going to join us, do you know?
We weren't notified that she was unable to attend, but you can seat Julie for her as the next alternate.
Okay. Julie, would you sit for Geneva, please? Thank you. First order of business, the approval of the September 10th meeting minutes.
Move to approve the September 10th meeting minutes.
Okay, motion is made. Is there a second?
Second, Julie.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain?
I abstain.
Michael abstains. Thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda, application review, C20-15, 140 Waterford Parkway South, concrete products manufacturing and outdoor storage. Babcon Precast, applicant, Mathon Fund 1 LLC owner, Lorero agent. Questions, comments?
I think staff, let me just take you, we've had a lot of information submitted over the last week. And I forwarded that to you through our link. It's also available on the website. It's also available on the link through the agenda. Hopefully everyone had a chance to get that. We have received revised plans. We have received a September 22nd response to remaining comments from staff, an update on the outfall summary, and revision to the stormwater management plan came in, and also concurrent reviews is occurring with planning and zoning right now, and they hired a third-party engineer to help review the application. So planning and zoning forwarded the review from Fuss and O'Neill dated September 18th for the commission to review. And it's just pertinent or relevant part of it is that on page 6 and 7, the Fuss and O'Neill team reviewed the consistency of the project with the Jordan Brook Watershed Management Plan. I believe Seamus, are you here? Seamus Moran?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. With that, I think it would be beneficial if you can give a rundown for the summary of what has been modified since our last meeting and help the commission catch up with all the changes.
Yeah, of course. Good evening, Commission. Again, my name is Seamus Moran, PE in Connecticut. I work for Lorero Engineering. I'm joined by Jeff Prince, who's with Dacon, who's also on the phone, and Clint Brown, who's with Lorero. Actually, I see Mark Peterson, who's a member of Fabcon, who's also on the line, it looks like. So yeah, thank you for the introduction, Maureen. So we did submit, so prior to the 9-10 meeting, September 10th meeting, we received Maureen's letter on September 4th. We tried to accomplish as many of the plan revisions as we could. We submitted those on September 8th. I'm sure you guys all saw those. We kind of went through some of those comments on the September 8th plan set. Since then, we completed the revisions. I think in that letter that I had submitted for the September 10th meeting, I had said either what we did do on the plans or what we were planning to do on the plans. So the September 22nd plan set that we submitted on Monday included all the revisions from September 8th and all the revisions that I said I was going to do that have been incorporated in the plan set. So we submitted a revised letter to Maureen, which included all the plan revisions or the drainage report revisions or how we handled all of our comments. I believe, based on the conversation we had yesterday, I think we're in a good place. I guess I can go over. I'm not sure if everybody had a chance to look at those September 8th plans, but there were some changes in those plans that I can go over. Otherwise, I can just go over the revisions that were incorporated into the September 21st plan set, if that's probably more applicable. It's more relevant. So if it's okay, I'll talk about what we changed in the September 21st plan set, which was submitted Monday, which was the follow-up to the final comments that Maureen had. So based on the September.
Excuse me, Mr. Moran, is that agreeable with the commission?
It's fine with me, sure.
If it helps, I can certainly just go over a quick summary of what was on the September 8th plans. If that helps.
We'll go with your first option.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So the plans we submitted Monday, there are some minor changes. For example, we added the offline 4-bay size and capacities to sheet 18. We added, let's see, so the offline sediment 4-bays are also sized to retain and meter the 100-year storm event. Maureen had asked for sediment loading calcs. We did preliminary analysis for that, but based on the size of the basins, sized to accommodate and meter the 100-year storm event, our preliminary calcs were that it was gravely oversized to the magnitude of about 100 times what it was required to be. So that was, we didn't complete the calculations, but I believe they're drastically oversized. Basin E, as a result of one of Maureen's comments, which was the storage yard you should probably account for the impervious area added as a result of the storage panels. I'm sorry, the concrete panels in the storage yard. It increased our curve number in our storage yard, which increases the runoff. And as a result, Basin E got slightly larger. We actually were able to drop it 6 inches. So the size of it didn't get any bigger. It just got deeper a little bit. We still have more than 3 feet of separation distance to the groundwater. So I think that is okay. Basin F, we also got it slightly larger. We had to extend it to the southeast, which is kind of parallel with the wetlands. We didn't want to get closer. And we also had to extend it out towards the wetland about 3 feet, which, you know, our outlet pipe is still much closer. We're still outside the 100-foot review area, but that Basin F got slightly larger. There were some revisions to the ENS narrative. We had to add some, we changed around where some of the things are going, when we're going to start the construction of the basins. We added some extra verbiage in there for clearing and, you know, maintenance. So that was updated in the ENS narrative on sheet 2. We also added a water quality unit in lieu of the hydrodynamic separator right before basin C2. So on the south side of basin C2, which is the basin east of the building, southeast of the building, there was a hydrodynamic separator proposed in there. It's near the fueling station. So the recommendation was to put in a oil water separator, not just a hydrodynamic separator. So we switched out the hydrodynamic separator for a water quality unit, which has great sediment PSS removal percentages and oil and grease. And lastly, we added a temporary dewatering detail to sheet 40 of the plan set. So it's a quick rundown, but there's a few other items that I wanted to just touch on, just kind of as a summary of where we're at, because I've been talking a lot, and I'm sure a lot of stuff has gone over people's heads. It goes over my head all the time. So I figured I'd give you a quick summary of some of our stormwater improvements to show you where we're at as a kind of an overall statement. So one of the big things, obviously, was that we were trying to infiltrate the 10-year storm event. So that's what we did throughout the site. But on top of that, one of the big recommendations was pre-treatment. So we're infiltrating the 10-year storm event, but we're also adding a treatment train to every single one of these stormwater treatment practices. So I have a quick summary that I can go through of what we're treating, how we're treating it, just so you can get a better sense, an overall sense of how we're treating the stormwater for the site. So in management area A, which is in the northwest corner of the building, We have A1 and A2. A1 is a large bed of StormTech underground infiltration chambers. The isolator rows proposed for that are proposed to treat 124% of the water quality flow. And it also infiltrates the 10-year storm event, which is it's a 5.14 inch storm, which the water quality volume is a 1 inch storm. So you'll hear the number 514% more than the water quality volume in a lot of these circumstances because of that. So what we're doing is basin A1 treats 514% of the water quality volume. The pre-treatment pre-treats 124% of that water quality flow. So there's multiple layers of treatment. So then A2 is a small basin that, again, the 4-bay treats 83% of the water quality volume, where the stormwater quality manual recommends 25%. So we're vastly above that. And on top of that, we're infiltrating the 100-year storm event for that basin just because it's a very small contributing area. So for that basin, we're treating 782% of the water quality volume. Stormwater management area B is in the northeast corner of the site. There's a small bed of StormTech units to treat the roof runoff. We just want to infiltrate that directly. That's the 1-year storm event. That's basin area B1. That's StormTech units. And basin B2, so basin B2 is sized again for the 10-year storm event, 514% of the water quality volume. Before that, we have a water quality unit that's sized for 155% of the water quality flow. We have catch basins with 4-foot sumps. We have multiple catch basins with 4-foot sumps, and the inline sediment 4-bay, that's one in the basin, is sized for 38%, where 25 is recommended. So we have 155% in the water quality unit and 38% in the inline 4-bay, on top of 514% within the basin itself for infiltration. Area C is much of the same. We have an offline, so we're infiltrating the 1-year storm event. We have a water quality unit, as I mentioned, is proposed in lieu of the hydrodynamic separator. That water quality unit is sized for 55% of the water quality flow. Even before that, we have an offline sediment 4-bay for 25% of the water quality volume. We have catch basins with 4-foot sumps. And then there are 2 inline sediment 4-bays within that basin, and those sediment 4-bays are sized to treat 148% of the water quality volume, which again, 25% is recommended. Stormwater management area D is a large bed of StormTech units. Terminal catch basins have 4-foot sumps, and the isolator rows are proposed to treat 211% of the water quality flow. So again, it's way beyond the requirement of the water quality flow or water quality volume. Again, and also that infiltrates the 10-year storm event. Stormwater management area E is in the southeast corner. We have some of our we have an offline sediment 4-bay that we've discussed that pre-treats 33% of the water quality volume. We have a hydrodynamic separator proposed beyond that, which is 75% of the water quality flow. And then we have an inline sediment 4-bay, which is 27% of the water quality volume. So we have, I guess what I'm getting at is we're adding a lot of pre-treatment that pre-treats in a certain volume, a certain percentage, so we can remove as much as we can even before it gets to the basin, which is then sized for a 10-year storm. Lastly, stormwater management area F, which has an offline sediment 4-bay that pre-treats 32% of the water quality volume, has a hydrodynamic separator beyond that, which is 78% of the water quality flow, and the inline sediment 4-bay there treats 64% of the water quality volume. And again, treats the 10-year storm event. So that was, I'm sorry, it was a little laborious, but I wanted to kind of do an overall summary of things we've proposed, things we've implemented that I think are drastic improvements to the site. If there's any questions on that, I can certainly take those now. Otherwise, the reason I wanted to get into that first was I wanted to discuss the Fuss and O'Neill, some of the comments in the Fuss and O'Neill report. So if there's any questions, I can certainly take those now. No? Okay.
Yeah, one question if I could share this.
Sure.
Thomas. I guess before you, I should have maybe waited until you went through the Fuss and O'Neill, but I read through the whole thing and I mean, a lot of it is more things that you will develop further on down the road. But I guess the one thing that I guess stood out is, you know, maybe we need to determine the saturated hydraulic conductivity in each infiltration area. And I was wondering if you guys were planning on doing that. You know, maybe 1 or 2 tests in each area just to confirm it. I mean, I'm comfortable. It's all outwash, stratified drift, very high permeability environment, but just for confirmation, I think for everyone's sake, it would be a good idea to have some tests run in those specific areas. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Wade. Yeah, so that is one of the big ones. I apologize. Sorry, there's a horn in the background. Yes, that is one of the big ones. So what happened was during the design phase, we couldn't, obviously, on 90 acres, we didn't know exactly where the basins were going to go. So we did as many infiltration rates as we could, pulling head tests to figure out what the permeabilities are of the soils, of the underlying soils. The report suggests what you could use throughout the site based on the soil criteria that you find. So we looked at the soil strata in each of the test pits or borings. Obviously, this is nothing new to you, Wade, I'm sure. So what that outwash is, that depth that we found at the basins, it was all outwash, like you said. And based on the geotechnical recommendations, that outwash was supposed to be, they recommended a rate of 7.1 inches per hour. We added a factor of safety of 2 to that, so 3.6 in areas where it's draining directly to the subsoil. And then on top of that, we added an additional factor of safety because we wanted to retain some of the water to uptake some of these nutrients. So the bottoms of our basins are proposed to have a soil matrix that has a 1.5 inches per hour. So my long answer is, we think it's right, but we have heard the comments. Maureen also mentioned that in the comments the other day. So we are strongly considering getting these testings done sooner rather than later, just as a way to confirm what we have out there. I mean, we think it's right. We're around 95%, but it would be nice to have the testing so we can reiterate that to everybody. We don't have that scheduled right now. That hasn't been scheduled yet. This is still in discussion phases, but it's something that, based on the comments we received and the feedback we're getting, I think we're considering it.
When would you expect to have a schedule?
We mentioned it the first time today after our call with Maureen and Mark and Abby about 12:30. So it got on the docket around 12:30 today. We haven't had much discussion since then, but we did have the discussion at 12:30 today. So I don't know the schedule yet for that.
Would it be fair to say that you should have something by midweek next week?
I don't know if that will be possible yet. I have a call into the geotech engineer. Would the commission be satisfied if the geotech engineer confirmed the findings with regard to the locations of the infiltration basins, as opposed to actually doing additional infiltration testing? I mean, the geotech engineer did in fact recommend site-wide values that then were taken by LEA and given safety factors. And I wondered if what you need is confirmation from the geotechnical engineer that such translation of information was correct.
Wade, you have any comment?
I think, I think they're probably correct, but I think confirmation testing would be in order, I think.
Okay.
I'm totally comfortable with it, and I think it's going to work. Having been out on the site, dealing with similar sites and doing this as a profession, I mean, I think it's generally going to be fine, but I think for confirmation, for everyone's sake, I think it'll be a good thing. And, I don't think you don't have to go wild, maybe one in each one, or maybe two in a larger one, and just get a sample, tube samples or whatever, and run perm test on it. And I think you'll be fine. But I think just for confirmation, to dot the I's, cross the T's, I think that would be the best course of action. It covers everyone, I think.
be happy to do so. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you.
Moran?
Say Moran or Maureen? I'm sorry.
Moran.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. So I guess that was one of the comments that Fuss O'Neill had, was about that. The other one was item 55. They requested a pollutant loading analysis. The whole reason I went through all of our pre-treatment, how much we're treating, is because we think we've designed this, essentially over-designed it. We want to over-design it. We want to be a good tenant. We want to be a good owner in the space. We want to do all the right things. So that's what we've done. We've designed it based on the the stormwater quality manual. As I mentioned, the water quality manual recommends that inline 4 bays treat 25% of the water quality volume. We have that and plus some in the inline 4 bays. We have separators before that, water quality units before that. So, plus we're infiltrating the 10-year storm event. So I think we've put all of our best feet forward to design this thing correctly. I know the Fuss and O'Neill report Jordan Brook Watershed Management Report is 20 years old. And the water quality manual came out after that, and it's more widely accepted. We're above and beyond the water quality manual. So our hope is that we can talk to Fuss and O'Neill and see if that's really necessary. Maybe they say, I don't care what you just said, do it. In that case, if that's the case, we'll do it. But we think we've done all we possibly can to remove pollutants in the stormwater. So that's just one item that we'll have to discuss with Fuss and O'Neill. Item 56 was galvanized roof drains. They will not be used in the site. Item 57, again, I just mentioned that we're significant pretreatment involved in our treatment train. And then 58 was they asked for more frequent inspections after the first 3 years of operation on our stormwater management system. So that's just a note. So there's items 55 through 58 dealt with the stormwater quality. And I think we're in the process of either dealing with them or handling them, or they've been accounted for. The other one that I wanted to discuss that is pertinent to this commission is the wetlands and ecology comments. Item 59, here. All right, so item 59 in the wetlands, in the ecology report is mentioned decoy vernal pools. Mentioned that basin near the vernal pool being a decoy vernal pool. I spoke with the wetland consultant the other day about this, and he brought up 3 points: that the basin's located more than 100 feet from the wetland. It's located 12 feet above the wetland elevation, so it's substantially higher in elevation. And it will never hold water long enough for it to be considered a vernal pool. I mean, as long as it's operating correctly as it's designed, it should drain in under 22 hours, which is not enough time for a creature to think that it's a vernal pool. It should never have ponded water in it, and it should only have, at the most, 22 hours worth of water in it after a significant storm event. So the wetland scientist does not think that it would ever be considered a decoy vernal pool. Item 60 is regarding breeding birds and species of concern. No mention of adjusting or limiting construction activities. So the breeding bird survey came back, and they did not find the birds of concern. His kind of overarching statement is that, can you do construction outside of the breeding season, which construction would then take place between September 15th and March 15th. If everything goes well and according to plan, we should have all of our clearing done, as he recommends, before March 15th. So just by when this is in and when we're trying to do construction and start clearing, we should be well within that September 15th to March 15th window. It wasn't specifically stated, but we're hoping to be within that window. Item 61, they had a question about the conservation easement, and it's shown correctly on the plan, so hopefully they see that now. Item 62 mentions it depicts a 50-foot break in the proposed conservation easement. Maureen and I spoke about this yesterday, and she brought this to my attention that it's going to be one continuous easement which is standard. However, the applicant, rather than having a 50-foot wide stretch in the middle for access, they will have deeded access over the easement for any future maintenance or improvements of that crossing. So it will be one continuous easement. So if people get to the edge of it, they're not, stepping over, looking, wondering if they can step on private property. So it will be one continuous easement with owner's right. Lastly, 63 is Fuss and O'Neill stated that actually the stormwater basins are meant for stormwater, not for turtles, and we agree. We agree to the extent that we want them to be stormwater basins. That's what they're designed for. They're not designed for turtles. However, he asked that we plant it with certain seeds because it would encourage use by the turtles. If they use it, so be it. We're not holding the basins accountable for creating breeding grounds for turtles. We're holding them accountable for their stormwater treatment practices. And as such, we're, as discussed with Maureen yesterday, we're going to be removing the conservation easement from the basin because we need to get in there whenever there's an issue to maintain that basin. So the easement will not be extended over the basins. But if they're used by turtles, so be it. We're not going to stop them. We're not going to put barriers around it to prevent their use.
Right.
So, and that was it for the Fuss and O'Neill comments. I guess last thing that I should digress was I wanted to touch base on the total, the output, I guess the peak rates and the volumes to each of the design points. I know I had mentioned we're decreasing. I just wanted to kind of show you guys a table that shows that. And on top of that, we do have a video of the gantry cranes that if I tried to send it to Maureen, it's sideways on her screen. So I think she's going to let me share my screen so everybody can see what's going on. And at the same time, just before that, I can go over the peak rates and the volumes just to give you another overarching summary of what our improvements are actually doing at our design points. So Maureen, I'm not sure if you have the ability to let me share my screen. Let's see if I click on it. Yep. It says the host has disabled it. So I think somebody has to let me give me some access here.
Working on it, Shaz.
Yep, of course.
Try again, Seamus.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right, so I'm going to share my larger screen, so I will not be looking directly at the camera. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see me. So I'll share my screen now. Everybody see my screen? With hopefully the peak rates on it? Yep, okay. Again, so it's just a summary. I probably mentioned this a month and a half ago. I just want to bring it to everybody's attention again. So these are at design point 1 here, design point 2, design point 3, and design point 4. These are, design point 1 is the Jordan Brook edge of wetlands on the north half of the site. Design point 2 is Jordan Brook edge of wetlands on the south half of the site. So it's at kind of the design point 1 is at the midpoint of Jordan Brook. Design point 2 is at the southern end of Jordan Brook. So these numbers, as you can see, existing addition. I'm sorry?
Double doors. It was like backdraft move. This huge turd clouds.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Was that for me? Okay, all right, so if everybody can see this, I'll just quickly go over it. You can see the existing numbers here in the left column, proposed in the middle, and the change in the peak rates over on the right-hand side of each column. So, if you can see for the 100-year storm events, at design point 1, there's a minor reduction for all of them. At design point 2, it's a reduction for all of them, for all storms 2 through 100. Design point 3, same thing. Design point 4, reductions at the 2 through 100-year storm events. So, as well as this is the volume of runoff at each of the design points. This is in acre feet. So these are, it looks like a small number. It's a pretty substantial number when you multiply it by 43,000 square feet. So again, in order of magnitude, we're looking at design point 1 and 2, proposed condition is only 1.3 versus the existing at 2. So we're looking at about a 50% reduction, a little bit more than 50% reduction. And as it goes, almost, 0.8 acre feet for design point 2, 0.6 at design point 3, and 1.2 for design point 4. So significant reductions across the board for peak rates and for volumes, and I just wanted to bring that up again. So lastly, we do have that video. I know we promised it. We finally have one. I can share that with everybody. It shows how the gantry cranes unload a vehicle at one of the other sites. So let me bring that up now. So that is that. And last but not least, I promise, and then I will get off the mic, is we put together a conceptual site layout of the storage yard so everybody could see how the panels will lay out and see how we develop the offline sediment forebays. I sent that to Maureen earlier today. Probably when I say earlier, I mean about 2:30, so nobody's had a chance to look at this yet. But I will share that with you guys so you can see it. So this here, if you zoom into the storage yard, this is how we also develop the amount of impervious coverage based on this layout. So each of the concrete rows, or each of the darker rows here, are concrete panels. The gantry cranes move in and out of the paths next to it. There's a little strip between each of the panels where one of the wheels of the gantry crane is. And then as you can see, the offline forebays are in line with the panels based on the layout. There's access to the panels, to the offline sediment forebays on each side. This is where the gantry crane path is. And we've added a fence around these as well to prevent access from any panels or storage of anything in the offline forebays. So they can access these forebays for cleaning or maintenance, and there's a fence around it to prevent any usage other than stormwater. So this was submitted today, and it will be included in the record now, but I wanted to get everybody an idea of what the layout would look like. Again, this is schematic. They like to do them in rows like this. It's easier for the gantry cranes. I don't know if this is exactly the layout. I highly doubt this is exactly the layout that they're going to use, but it's as close as we can guess right now.
Seamus, how many cranes? Or Jeff?
3.
3 cranes.
3?
3 gantry cranes.
Now, it would most likely be a rare circumstance when the interior yard was utilized, I would think, correct?
It's only utilized for the staging of one project at a time, I guess is the easiest way to put it. But, if we're delivering to 2 projects and they're not going to be picking out of the whole entire yard. the yard might stage 10 projects at once. So they're going to be delivering out of one project or at a time, usually, maybe two.
Okay. But I guess, I mean, it would be rare to have that whole yard filled with panels as a general rule, or not uncommon.
I'm not going to say that it's uncommon. I'm going to say that that yard could vary from half empty to completely full to, it depends on the production rate. It depends on if a client is not ready to receive panels, then the yard fills up with that job.
Okay, understood.
So the yard can get overfilled if there's two clients that don't need their panels on time because steel erector is late, you know, whatever the reason might be.
All right, thank you.
With that, that's the end of my presentation. Sorry to bore you with all the numbers. I just thought it was important to get some of that information out. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Mr. Moran, I think my question is more directed to Mr. Prince. I noticed in the video that there was a fair amount of water and mud, we'll say, where the semi was entering and exiting. Are those the areas that will be covered with crushed stone?
Yes.
And the gantry ways, the areas that they transit will be paved, is that correct?
No, the yard and the surface of the yard will be dressed where it's utilized for the storage of panels.
Okay, so that would include the transit of the vehicles and the cranes as well.
Right. Generally, the vehicles will stick to the ring road, and I say generally, but not all the time. And the cranes will move about the site.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, this is Dave. Hello,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I guess this is almost a question for Maureen. And I don't remember in previous discussions asking for a third-party review of the project, and I was wondering why. What did we ask for that and I just missed it, or is that something that was just asked for by Abby because she had concerns about something that wasn't right with this project? I was just trying to understand why we have Fuss and O'Neill now getting involved.
The third-party review is being conducted on behalf of Planning and Zoning Commission, Dave.
Okay.
Part of the review, since Planning and Zoning is in charge of stormwater protection, and our stormwater regs mention and require review of the Jordan Brook Watershed Management Plan when you are in that watershed, and the fact that Fuss and O'Neill developed the plan, it was a good opportunity to have them give a look at it. But this is for P&Z. This is not anyone questioning the status of the application in front of the Inland Wetlands Commission, but it was fortuitous to have this information now during our review instead of getting it or seeing it later.
Okay, I can appreciate that, and I see, you know, some of their comments about, you know, they'd like to see more contours and that sort of thing, and that I don't, you know, when I was reading through this, I'm wondering, did I miss something? Are we going to ask for Seamus to address all these issues? And I guess he's going to do that before some other group, some other commission, right? Planning and Zoning? Okay.
That's correct.
And you did address the specific comments to the Jordan Brook Watershed Plan. I appreciate that. Let me think now. Was there something else I had here? No, not right now. But you know, Wade, you asked for additional testing, and you referred to it as saturated soil test. Or saturated? I didn't.
saturated hydraulic conductivity testing. You know, that's where you get a sample and you actually submit it to a lab. I mean, a lot of engineers will just go out and do a perk test. I mean, they'll take a post hole digger and dig a hole in the ground and pre-soak it, dump the water in. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a saturated hydraulic conductivity test where you actually get a sample, take it back to the lab, you have known boundary conditions, and determine the saturated hydraulic conductivity.
This is a little more specific, a little more refined test than typically digging a pit. And
Yes. Oh yeah, because when you're doing a percolation test, you don't know anything about the boundary conditions. You could have, you know, say like this time of year, you do a perk test, it's been so dry, you're going to get so much water going out of that perk test hole just because you're trying to get back to an initial saturation. So it's, you know, a perk test is not the same as a permeability test. And a
Gotcha.
permeability test is what you want for this to determine how the water percolates into the ground. It's kind of a complex, you know, when you get into basins, you get a groundwater mound development, builds up into it. And if you don't have enough hydraulic conductivity, the mound goes up into the basin and then your hydraulics just quit. So
Yeah.
the saturated hydraulic conductivity, like, you know, when groundwater mounding, that sort of thing. So with this, it's just confirmation that you're not going to get the groundwater mound into the top of the basin and the hydraulics work.
oh, you see, I was really under the impression that that all the treatment areas, you know, for excess water, that sort of thing, were sufficient, and that that there would not be another test required. But I certainly appreciate your experience and judgment on this, and if that's required, then I support that. But I just needed to ask that question as far as why it is that, you know, we're asking for this additional testing.
Plus, I mean, the areas that are proposing for infiltration were not all tested. And so this is, again, I'm very comfortable, everything's going to work out fine, but I just want to confirm it. So in the event that the question comes up, yes, we confirmed it, it works.
Okay.
And I'm totally comfortable it most likely will work. There's a site being stratified drift all wash deposits. It has very high hydraulic conductivity if it hasn't been altered.
So where are we here? And maybe I shouldn't be asking this question, but where are we here? Are we in a position where we need to wait for them to do these tests before we should make a decision going forward? Or?
I mean, that's something they could probably do between now and the next meeting. I don't know, Seamus, if that's possible, or.
I mean, we'll try and get to it as quickly as possible. I mean, to give any sort of comfort, if it comes back and if it doesn't permeate like we expect it to, it's our responsibility to do it correctly. You know, if it's conditional on a minimum of 1.5 inches per hour based on what we have in the bottom of our basins, based on what we designed it to, you know, that's perfectly fine. If it comes back at, you know, 1 inch per hour and the basins have to get bigger, or it comes back at even smaller, we have to redesign anyway. We can't just close our eyes and say, oh, well, the soil strata said it should have been faster, so we'll go with that.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, sounds logical. Thank you.
I have a question for Maureen. Maureen, with all this discussion, are we ready to have all the information ready for our mandatory action date?
The commission's action date is next meeting. That's 14 days. I guess to try to summarize this discussion regarding the hydraulic conductivity, if we don't have that data and the commission feels that they need to see that for confirmation, or you make that a condition of your approval that be conducted before final plans are filed. There's a number of ways you can do that. If you don't feel that you're comfortable enough with the design engineer's rationale and the geotechnical information that these bases may not operate appropriately, then I would urge you then to just wait on your decision until they show that. But as Mr. Moran said, if they're not, they have these, like Basin F is 450 feet long. So if they have to make it a little deeper or they have to change the substratum, that as long as the clearing limits and the limits of disturbance don't change, a lot of that stuff is internal. So, I mean, it's really back up to the commission, and we can condition that if you want as a requirement prior to final plans being filed, or you can hold off on your final decision. Staff can draft you other conditions and considerations, and the applicant can try to get the information for you by the next meeting.
I'm pretty comfortable with it being a condition of approval, because basically if they don't address it, it doesn't move forward. I mean,
I agree, Wade. I think that from the standpoint of everything else that's been done, if this is the only thing holding us up, then we should make it a condition of approval that the test is performed and that the results come back at the appropriate level. What was it? 1.5?
So in the basins, it's
Yeah.
1.5. In the storm tech units, it's 3.6. So
Right. Right. So if we do the test and it comes back that way, that should be the one condition that we're waiting on, and we can just say that it has to be done and those standards met by the time of the filing of the final plan. And if that's the only thing that's holding the commission up otherwise, then I think we should move forward with the project. With its approval.
Question from Mr. Moran. If I understood you correctly, if the numbers don't come back the way, at a point where they're acceptable, then you would redesign the basins to make them meet the criteria. Is that correct?
Exactly. We can't just go forward if we design the basins based on a certain infiltration rate and it's slower, then we obviously have to change the basins, and that would likely result in, or probably coming back to you if we have to do any more work within the 100-foot upland review area.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any more questions from the commission? Any other comments? Maureen, do you have any comments or questions?
I had the opportunity to have very long discussions with both Mr. Moran and the entire project team today and last night. All staff's comments or questions from September 4th have been addressed. Thank you in detail. We have looked at some options for some of the drainage around Basin C and E, all which will still be within the proposed limits of clearing and work that the commission is being asked to review. And it is clearly on staff is in support of making these basins stormwater management basins as their priority, so that conservation easement limits should not be included into any of the outlets or the basins. The operating staff and the inspectors need to have free opportunity to access them and to clean them or rework them as needed so they maintain their functionality for the protection of the water quality of Jordan Brook. That is the most important thing. The issue about whether they are used as turtle habitat, again, this Inland Wetlands Agency does not regulate turtles. You can't regulate any wetland wildlife under state statute unless it's been proven there's a direct impact to wetlands, and there hasn't been direct impact to wetlands. That said, it's great that we're supporting, and of course it meets our conservation goals, but that conservation easement and all those other amendments was proposed in part to satisfy the state. So the state has a whole second level of review on this through their stormwater permits. I just want to, this is all together, what your commission is seeing is by far a significant level of information that exceeds what's necessary on the commission's level, but has been shared with the commission because this applicant is getting ready to go to the state for their discharge permits.
Mm-hmm.
Based
I
on
lost you. I'm just saying, I'm very much, I'm happy that the conservation easement is contiguous with a lot of the work the commission's been doing throughout the watershed. And that issue about the gap was really just a syntax. It's going to be a reserved right, and that will be reviewed by the attorneys.
Based on our discussion this evening and previous meetings and Maureen's comments, does the commission have any objection if we direct staff to move ahead with the preliminary preparation of the draft?
I would so move that the staff, or that we go to a draft permit and based upon the information that the staff has been provided, and also the condition that the condition for approval that we talked about with the infiltration and the the new test, the saturated hydraulic conductivity test.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion is made and seconded that the commission would direct staff to prepare a draft with the noted conditions.
Could I add one comment?
Okay, discussion.
Um,
Mr. Thomas?
I would like if the applicant's amenable to it to have a third party do the ENS inspections and testing, if you're amenable to that.
That would be a condition of the draft. Is that correct, Wade?
Are you comfortable with that, Seamus and Jeff?
We have a pretty good geotechnical engineer on this project.
Oh, Haley and Aldridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, if they do it, that's fine. I mean, I would consider that, that works. As long as it's not, employees directly under you. I would be okay with Haley and Aldridge doing it.
Seamus, thoughts on the matter?
So we don't get the work, you mean? I'm just kidding. That's perfectly fine with us.
I'm talking about the concrete mixer going out and do the stormwater sampling is what I'm talking about.
I got you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so it sounds like we have some agreement to the motion. Are there any other questions or any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Lurch,
Aye.
Mr. Medelis,
Aye.
Ms. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Stankoff,
Aye.
Mr. Thomas,
Aye.
Ms. Wainscott,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So Maureen, you can proceed with comments or conditions of the draft. Any other questions or comments relative to the C20-15 application?
If every application we got was this extensive and good, world would be a better place.
I would second that.
I concur as well. Excellent job presenting and very responsive to all of the comments.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
gentlemen.
you guys.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you listening. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, C20-16, 170 Rope Ferry Road. Two-lot subdivision, St. Paul Catholic Church Corporation. Owner and applicant, Floric Surveying LLC agent. In our last meeting, if you recall, I recused myself from this application, and I will relinquish the chair to our secretary, Mr. Medelis. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Night, Richard.
Good night. Maureen, do we have, you want to review your comments?
Let me just move my pile. Hang on. You want a seat, Ivy, for Rich?
Yes, Ivy, would you please sit for Rich on this application? You're muted. Ivy. Okay, thank you.
At the commission's direction, staff, I prepared today, September 16th. I hope you've had it or have a chance. If not, we can bring it up on our screen. Did you get screen back from?
Yes.
Okay. For the subdivision of the property at 170 Rope Ferry Road. And I put together a findings for you and a draft permit for consideration. Yeah. Do you want me to summarize? Does everyone remember this project, or should I give you a thumbnail sketch of where we're at?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you give us a thumbnail sketch?
Yeah, let me bring up, Katrina's going to bring up my September 16th memorandum to you. It's coming right up. Just go, okay, go to this, just this picture. I think that's in it. Yeah. So there's the, can you run the thing? So that's the overview, that's the whole property. The church is going to break off just up at the south end of their parking lot and look to south the wooded area that's accessed by Granite Court. So in that area, there were 9 wetlands identified, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are isolated pockets. Yeah, I had it kind of marked up with just one of the sheets there in green. And that one you can see 5 of the pockets that are just below the elbow or the hook in Granite Court. And also that's where the proposed development is. The wetlands were monitored by James Cowan to see if they were being used as breeding areas by amphibians, which would render them what we call vernal pools. And the 3 that I have highlighted in the southeast were found to contain egg masses of spotted salamanders, which is an obligate species that uses these vernal springtime wet areas, lay their eggs, and then the eggs hatch and the juveniles leave the pools when the pools dry up. Closest to the development, up in the left corner, those did not contain deep enough water for a prolonged enough period of time, and no egg masses were discovered there. And then the long corridor on the east side is the intermittent stream that continues to drain off property. So with this, there is no activity within 100 feet of the vernal pools. And the clearing limits right now as they stand are about 60 feet away from the non-productive small pockets to the west of the proposed house. And based on that, the commission found that the clearing limits as proposed could be the limits of work, the non-encroachment area for this permit, and directed staff to formulate a draft permit for your review and approval. So coming up, the next page or 2 is the draft permit. Yeah, can you blow that up? So this, what I have for special conditions are pretty much what we apply for 2, 3, 4 lot subdivisions, that we're going to identify what's called in our regulations a wetland non-encroachment boundary, which is a little more strict than the upland review area terminology. It means it's notifying the owner that any work outside that boundary or within that boundary closer to the wetland requires review and potential approval by the Inland Wetlands Commission. That includes clearing, grading, filling, removing vegetation, requires authorization from the commission. And we have markers that are used to mark those boundaries. Limits of clearing should be marked in the field and approved by your staff or an agent of the town prior to the start of site work. And to make sure that erosion and sediment control measures are installed at the limits of disturbance prior to the start of excavation. Those are the 4 special conditions. And then on page 3, the findings. For the summary ruling in accordance with the Waterford Inland Wetlands and Watercourses regulation, or that a wetland non-encroachment area is identified, upgrading of the wetland boundary to maintain a vegetated buffer, which will stabilize slopes, soils, filter runoff, and minimize impacts of the activity on wetland function, value, and water quality. And 2, restricted adherence to the terms and conditions of the permit will protect the quality of inland wetlands and surface water on the property.
Any questions from commission members of staff?
I don't.
Julie, I have a question. Maureen, I'm sorry, I forgot to bring this up last time we were talking about this. But I remember when we walked around, there was a bunch of trash, some dumping that I don't recall exactly where that was. Maybe it was north of this proposed house location, perhaps. I know there's another property, the back of another property that kind of was in the wetlands area, but
Let's go to page, we'll bring up the page, Julie, hang on, this sheet.
Yeah, I can certainly speak to that. There was a residential house there that went into foreclosure, and that's where the garbage originated from. And I believe the zoning officer is finding the bank that now holds the note to that property on a daily basis.
so is any of that on the property in question?
It very well could be to the east. If Katrina could move her hand a little bit, just to that easterly line there, right where her hand is. There may be some there, but that's from the bank owned property. It's not from the church.
I just want to clarify that the town is working with the bank right now to try to get them to voluntarily clean that up. The debris is on the church property. So if there are any fines, they would be waged against the property owner. The town is trying to avoid that and get cooperation. This is a zoning enforcement action.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve this application.
I make a motion to approve the draft as written.
I second that, Julie.
Discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Maureen, are there any new applications?
No new applications.
Are there any violations?
Staff is not pursuing any violations.
Okay. Do we have any correspondence to the commission?
No,
Do we have any bills to pay?
no bills have come in.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night, thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you for all your work.
Thanks, Maureen.
Yeah, thanks, Maureen. Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank
A
you.
lot of hard work.
That is.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Michael?